All right, welcome back. It's Wednesday. Today is gonna be a little bit different. I'm gonna be hitting only the bench press in the weight room today because tomorrow or Friday, I'm gonna go and test a 40-yard dash. The idea for today is to hit something heavy that's not going to deteriorate my ability to perform the task that I'm gonna be focusing on. Get the CNS fired up, feel some sort of heavy, explosive external weight, carry that feeling into the test, and hopefully be able to perform at a high level when doing the test. So for me, a heavy bench press is going to cover everything that I'm looking at doing today. I'm gonna do probably a 1 to 2 rep max on a bench press, whether it's a true max or I just hit something that I feel is gonna be at a heavy load for 1 to 2 reps. We'll see as we go. I originally found this theory through Charlie Francis. And there's a story about Charlie Francis when he was working with Ben Johnson. Ben Johnson would go and hit a heavy bench press prior to running a 100-meter dash for the reasons of stimulating the CNS, getting things fired up, but also allowing the legs to stay fresh and not hitting anything specific towards whatever that goal is. So I've read multiple ways. I haven't confirmed whether or not this is true or not, but I've read that they would do it the day before. I read that they would do it the morning of, but the idea there, hit a heavy load, move something that's going to excite the CNS, but it's not going to be specific towards whatever it is you're doing. So if you're going to be doing a max sprint or a max jump, stay off your legs, hit something with your upper body. Ideally something that's not going to involve the legs, so you wouldn't do like a push press or a jerk or anything like that. I've read multiple other studies doing similar things like this, going into a peaking phase or ending a taper prior to going into some sort of a test, whatever it is you're doing. I've done this before and I've had really good results with it. I've gone into a session after hitting a heavy lift and felt ready to just fire on all cylinders and perform at a fairly high level. Even when we were bobsledding, I had teammates who the morning of a race, let's say we were gonna be racing that afternoon around 2 or 3 o'clock, they would go down into the weight room about 9, 10 o'clock in the morning, hit a heavy single or a double, something to just get the things firing, and then they would go and race. They had a lot of success with that. I've done it a few times and had a lot of success. I've done this specifically with testing a 40, and I've had a lot of success with it. So my experience with it obviously is more anecdotal, but there is some research that kind of supports the idea behind what I'm going to be doing today. But the bench press is gonna be the only thing that I'm doing. So I'm gonna start off with some lighter sets with the bands. Get the barbell moving very fast, take the bands off, and then we'll build up to something that's gonna be relatively heavy for 1 to 2 reps, just depending on how things are feeling. When you read any sort of article or study when it comes to sports science, you've gotta realize that sports science is more of a principle-based science than it is an exact science. There are some people who don't even believe sports science is an actual science. I think it is, but I think it's a lot different than an exact science. Like, for example, chemistry. I would consider chemistry to be an exact science. When you look at chemistry, an example that pops in my head real quick is when I was in elementary school, we made some volcanoes out of like paper mache with like a little cup in the middle. And what we would do is we would pour vinegar down at the bottom of the cup and then put like a tablespoon of baking soda inside the vinegar. Every time you add baking soda to the vinegar, you would get a reaction. And that reaction would end up being a lot of foam, shoots out, and it looks like a volcano. An exact science would be like, no matter where you're at in the world, no matter what time of day, no matter who does it, no matter the circumstances, every time you put that baking soda in the vinegar, that reaction is going to be the exact same every single time. That's what I'm considering an exact science. I don't consider sports science to be an exact science. I consider it to be a principle-based science. And what I mean by that is you could take a study from any sports science research and try to duplicate that. And no matter what, the results of that study will never be the exact same every single time for every single person. But the principles of that study, if applied the same way, should yield the same principle result. So if you're doing a study about building strength and you're doing a certain rep scheme and sets and overall volume and rest for building up, let's say, your 1 rep max, you can do it with 100 different people and you'll probably get 100 different variables on the result. Some people might gain 3% strength. Some people might gain 15% strength. But the principle of how the study is implemented, about how they progressively overloaded, about whatever it is that they were doing, is what is most important when it comes to sports science. That principle is what sports science is based on. It's not an exact science where it says, hey, if you do this exact sets and reps at this percentage for this duration of time, every single person that does this exact method will gain 5% strength on their bench press 1 rep max. It never works out that way because the human body is a variable that you could never absolutely control. But the principle, if you do a study and you got 100 people do it and you see some variation of improvement over the course of 80% of those people, then you could say, okay, the principle of what they did probably works. Let me take that principle and apply it to some things that I'm doing and see how I like to do that as well. So this example of doing a bench press prior to doing a sprint, the principle is external load, excite the nervous system, not specifically fatiguing to the task at hand. So a bench press, heavy repetitions, not fatiguing the legs, which I'm going to be doing a sprint and jump test. So this should help with the performance-based aspect of what I'm looking for today's session. We're going to do some doubles to start off with, and then maybe hit a single. I also haven't done an actual 1 to 2 rep max on a bench press in probably, I don't know, 6 months or so. I've been doing a lot of band work. I did some iso work. I did some eccentric work. So these are actually the first not accommodating resistance bench presses that I've done in a very long time. And accommodating resistance, I just mean this is the first reps I'm doing with no bands, just regular bench press today. So I don't know where I'm going to be at. I can say this for sure. Out of all my lifts, bench press has notoriously been my worst lift. 140 on the bar. $140 moves pretty well. What I am going to do is I'm going to put these safety arms up a little bit because there's nobody in the gym with me spotting, and I want to make sure I don't die. Okay, 150 felt really easy. Easier than I thought. 150 to, let's go 160. But we'll put on the blues just because it looks cooler. Not bad, not bad. Notoriously for me, bench press is one of those lifts that I can hit a wall on really fast. 160 felt good. I'm thinking if I jump to 170 might be too big of a jump. But I'm also thinking 165 might be too little of a jump. So now I'm kind of caught in between where I want to go. Let's just send it. We're going to go 170. 90% of the people that train here are powerlifters. The good thing about powerlifters is there's always a bottle of ammonia lying around. So we are going to take a little hit. Oh, that was a big hit. Not too bad. All right, last rep here. We're gonna go for 180. I'm either gonna hit this or get absolutely pinned. Oh, not there. Whew. I thought it was there. It wasn't there. If that doesn't get the CNS fired up, I don't know what will. All right, as I'm putting the weights away here, intent for today, I would say very good session. The idea was to lift something heavy. We did that. Almost had 180, which would have been pretty damn near close to my best all-time bench press. So not bad, considering I haven't done a true bench press in a long time. But even though I failed that rep, the goal of what today's session was supposed to accomplish is still met. A heavy bench press, something to keep the CNS fired up. That way we don't go into our 40-yard dash test feeling flat because we took too many days off. But overall, I would say I probably could have got 180 had I rested a little bit longer. I only took about a 2-minute break there. Normally between heavy 1 rep max attempts, you want to take 4 to 5 minute rest. 2-minute rest there. I was just feeling it, excited, wanted to get the next rep in. It's also good to kind of have an idea on what my bench press is going to be so I can base a little bit of my upper body work in the next training cycle for that, because we're going to be going into a strength cycle focusing on building up the squats, building up the bench. I don't know if I'm going to do a lot of deadlifting, maybe not, just depends on how I end up writing out the whole program. After we do that entire strength cycle, which is probably going to end up being somewhere around 12 weeks, we'll start hitting some 1 rep max bench presses again. And based on what it was today, I think 180 plus should be very, very doable at the end of the next 12-week phase. That's going to be it for today. Like I said, get in the gym, fire up the CNS, get out, keep the legs fresh. Didn't hit those. So tomorrow or the next day, we're going to go run a 40-yard dash and do a broad jump. I ordered some new spikes. I got an email today that they made it through customs. So hopefully they get here tomorrow. That way I could use those new spikes for the test, but we'll see. Other than that, appreciate you guys watching. Make sure to like, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you guys either tomorrow or Friday, whenever we run the 40.